Hello guys, it's me, Greed here. Today I want to talk about Overwatch Classic, how it disappeared, and how, well, I'll get into it. But basically, yesterday of this upload, I believe Classic disappeared. It's gone, it's not in the game anymore, you can no longer play the 2020 patch. During the duration of the Overwatch Classic 2020 patch, it is the only game mode I played for its entire duration. I did not play a single game of anything else. Not one, right? So, after having played it its entire duration, I had gotten pretty used to Classic, okay? I was used to DPS Doom, I was used to old Brig, I was used to the old hitbox sizes, I was used to everything, right? It all felt good. Now, about halfway through the Classic, I started to take it for granted. I started to be like, yeah, D.Va's really strong and it's kind of annoying. Oh, is this how Doomfist really used to be? I can't believe I used to play this with Doomfist being like this. This is bad. And it got to the point where at the end of it, I was actually kind of bad-mouthing the patch a little bit. Because I was like, yeah, the patch is absolutely, I agree, to be the best patch ever released, but it's not that good. You know, Doom is really annoying, and I was bad-mouthing it because I was taking it for granted. I got used to it, right? But having gone back to the actual game, I have now played Stadium, 6v6, 5v5, Ranked, Open Queue, and Mystery Heroes. Having gone back and played all of them since Classic has gone, I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, to the highest degree, that Overwatch Classic was an infinitely superior experience in absolutely every single way. There is not a single thing about Classic that was worse than original Overwatch, other than, I will say this one thing, the fact that it actually was not fully faithful to old Overwatch, and there were bugs, like Zarya couldn't rocket jump while bubbled, Genji had camera locks, Doomfist had bugs he didn't have that made him stronger, Kree had flashbang inconsistency. The mode was fucking broken, and it was bugged, and it was still better of an experience than current Overwatch, right? One of the main reasons Doomfist felt so strong is because obviously he was disgustingly overpowered, but it was also because there was a ton of things in the mode that didn't work. Sleep inconsistency, right, where sometimes sleep would hit and it wouldn't reg more than other things. It was probably the biggest no-regging thing in the entire mode, as well as the fact that shooting a Doomfist in the punching animation while he's punching would not put him to sleep, so you couldn't sleep a Doomfist doing that. You also couldn't sleep him during his seismic slam. In most cases, it would just go right through him because his hitbox was inaccurate. So if you were to actually shoot at him, it wouldn't hit him. You'd have to shoot below him for it to actually hit him. Flashbang was inconsistent. Mei didn't freeze. Zarya couldn't rocket jump while bubbled. Genji had camera locking issues. There was a lot of trouble, right, with the mode. It wasn't consistent. But the fact of the matter is, the only part of Classic that was worse about original Overwatch is the fact that Classic had bugs in it that didn't exist back then, which are provable, because you can go back and watch old footage from October 2020, that patch, and see that those things did not exist like that. Abby posted a tweet about it, where he posted a clip of him blading in the 2020 patch with no camera lock whatsoever, just as I remember it, and, well, there we go, right? Camera lock wasn't even in GOATs either. Camera lock existed for a couple of seasons. I think for one season at the start of Overwatch, and then it was fixed. So camera lock wasn't even in most of the Classic patches, or it shouldn't have been, but it was, right? So already there we go. It was a buggy mess, and the only thing that was wrong with it was that it wasn't completely faithful to the original design. Right? Isn't that great? Now, having gone back to original Overwatch after playing Classic for so long, the actual issues with Overwatch are so apparent. For example, we had a big debate over years about 5v5 versus 6v6, which format was superior, and we obviously ended up realizing 6v6 was a vastly superior experience, but it's not just a format issue, because if you played old Classic and you played original 6v6 today in Overwatch 2, they were completely different experiences, because the way the actual core game flowed and was designed was different. Therefore, the experience does not hold up between them. If you played the old Classic patch, it was very consistent. You had two tanks frontlining all the time, unless you had Ball or Hog. In those cases, those heroes would go off and do their solo play, right, which was absolutely fine. You would have your DPS typically on some sort of off angle, generally speaking, behind the tank, playing a bit more passively because they were easier to kill, but they were playing aggressive in sense of the angles they could operate within, and so on. And the supports, because they were easier to kill, they didn't have a lot of self-healing. The only way for them to heal themselves was to use team-wide utility abilities, like, for example, Ananate to heal herself, which wasn't that useful as a self-heal. It was better off use as anti or to heal your tank or whatever. Therefore, it forced Ana to play more passively so that she didn't have to use nade on herself, which meant she could be less aggressive, which meant the hero felt less oppressive to play against because it was easier to force her cooldowns in scenarios where they would have been more useful to be used as a team-wide healing thing or an anti, but couldn't have been because the Ana would have died without using nade on herself. Therefore, nade and sleep were vastly less annoying to play against because you couldn't openly spam it on the enemy team all game, which made a better experience. It also made she was less aggressive. She couldn't output as much damage anymore because there was less healing in the game. There was less healing passives. Therefore, the support characters actually had to play support and had to heal people instead of just being a pseudo DPS. There we go. And that already made the game feel better. The structure was superior. You had supports at the back playing a lot safer to keep their utility for their team and not themselves. They're playing less aggressively because they had to spend more time actually healing. Their actual utility was a lot more consistent because there was less denial dog shit in the game. So you were actually rewarded for using your utility correctly. The DPS were incentivized to go on angles but not overextend because they didn't have mass denial, mass mobility, survivability, or sustainability to keep them alive in scenarios where they shouldn't have. Therefore, they were playing more passively, but their damage was allowed to be higher and the range was allowed to be higher because of the fact they were easier to kill, which meant it was more skill-based and more positional-based than it is currently because there was less denial in the game and so on. And the tanks actually had to fear for their lives but could output lots of frontline pressure and not immediately explode for going aggressive. Therefore, the tanks couldn't just full send every fight because they're super tanks with mass sustain abilities, like, for example, Junker Queen Shout that gives her speed and gives her overhealth, which enables her to run into the enemy team and spam the abilities to give her self-healing and so on. Those things didn't exist, which means if the tank was to go aggressive, it would mean that their team would have to operate within the confines of what the tank was doing, and the tank would have to operate within the confines of what the team was doing, which makes the game more team-based and yet also had higher solo carry potential than current Overwatch because all of your actual utility, damage, healing, positioning, and so on was more valuable because of the fact that they were sharper pressures that were harder to perform, making the game less accessible, which meant things were allowed to be stronger because what happened was, in Overwatch 2, is they made most of the heroes more accessible and much easier to play, and because of that, it meant that their pressure had to be much lesser, they had to be weaker, and so on, to compensate for the fact that a higher number of players were able to perform at the skill ceiling of the character because they made the character easier. Therefore, they had to make the character weaker, which made them boring to play against and less skill-based, and they added more dog shit abilities in the game, like giving Kree a bunch of health, making fucking over his range, giving it a bunch of power into combat roll and the flash, and so on, making Fan the Hammer stupidly strong, and so on, because these are low skill abilities. That means absolutely everyone can do it, and they took all of the skill out of the high skill abilities and took all the reward out of the high skill abilities because when it was like that, it meant the divide between the good players and the bad players was too big. Therefore, the bad players couldn't do anything, and it would make them less inclined to purchase a skin because they were worse at the game. Right? That makes sense. Overwatch 1 was just a vastly more competitive experience. It was better structured, it was better balanced, the design was better, even 2CP felt better. Like, I'll be honest with you, a Overwatch 2020 Classic patch against D.Va, Doomfist, Brig, Bap, Orisa, Sig, all these fucking annoying characters, right, was an infinitely better experience than the best Overwatch 2 experience you can give me with Genji, Tracer, Winston, D.Va, Lucio, and Ana, right? The worst scenario in Classic felt better as a competitive game, as an FPS game, as a casual game. It was more skill-based, more fun, more structured, the value was higher, and the game was harder back then than it is today. It was a better experience in every way, and if you played the Overwatch Classic patch, you're going to be able to return to original Overwatch 2, and you're going to be able to play 5v5 or 6v6 or Stadium or whatever other mode you play, and you're going to realize, oh my goodness, what we lost is absolutely abhorrent. It is pathetically embarrassing. The devs managed to get to the point where they had Overwatch 2020 patch. They had it. They they created another patch afterwards that fucked over the game massively because they do not understand the game, and then they pushed towards Overwatch 2, which added dog shit denial design, mass sustain, more AoE, less skill-based abilities, more accessibility, lowered skill ceiling, and so on. There is not a single thing about Overwatch 2 that is a better experience than the original Overwatch game, and I know for a fact that every high-level player will agree with me. I know with any fucking backbone that's not going to shill, right? I know for a fact they're going to agree with me, and I also know for a fact the vast majority of everyone on this planet would prefer Overwatch 1 as a game. It's crazy, because over the years, I've spoken about the October 2020 patch as being the best patch of the game ever released for multiple reasons. The patch came back, we played it, guess what? It's good for absolutely every reason I said it was. It played exactly how I said it did, and it's going to be like that, because I actually kind of understand the game a little bit, and I kind of understand the design of the game a little bit, and it goes to show that actually, when you design the game to be more skill-based, with more player interaction and less poke, and the player agency is better experience, and the games are more structured, and the maps flow a little bit better, and the pacing of the game's a little bit better, and there's less free value, and there's less denial, and there's less AoE, and less sustain, and there's more precise gameplay, there's more brawl-based gameplay, and so on. It's weird how I said, that's a better experience. That's Overwatch. Then, we got that experience, and holy fucking shit, look at that. It's a better experience in every way that I stated it would be. Now, we can load into a game of Overwatch 2 and see the absolutely perfect, beautiful design philosophy of the Overwatch balance team and the Overwatch design team, where I get to play against Sojourn, who blows my brains out from across the map every time I look at her, or I have to deal with hitscan dogshit poke every game, or the still ludicrously overpowered Sigma character that's been broken for 6 years, but we refuse to change him or rework him because, well, that would be too much work. And thank God every time I load into Overwatch, I get to play against Lifeweaver and Kiriko, who can literally deny my entire play by the press of a button. But don't worry, all the people that play these characters are going to defend them because they're so awful at the game that they genuinely believe their value isn't free and is completely earned. Because according to these players, oh well, you actually have to time the Suzu really well to do it. Yeah, no shit. I'm not saying you just press the button and you win the game. I'm saying that teleporting across the map, looking at the floor, and pressing E is quite a bit easier than the Tracer triple blinking onto a guy, perfect laser beam tracking him with perfect movement while he's shooting him, then regenerating a blink, doing a blink melee recall all the way back, and then engaging another target. That's quite a bit more difficult than, look at teammate, press left shift, move mouse down, press E. I've won the team fight, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, okay? But to me, old Overwatch, where if I died to a McCree in Overwatch 1, do you know what I said? I said, whoa, those were some nice shots. Because it wasn't easy to hit them, and he was rewarded for hitting them. Do you know what I say when I play against the McCree in Overwatch 2? I say, wow, he's fucking shooting Jupiter balls at me with his egregiously fat health bar that I can't go anywhere near because there's no character in the game that can burst through it outside of the burst damage poke characters that I don't want to play. Therefore, if I go near him, his health bar is so fucking fat I'll never kill him, and he'll just press a button and I'll die immediately, and he doesn't even need to really aim all that much, because if he does, he might actually be able to kill me with his aim, other than the fact that he can just click in my general direction and I'll fall over and die if I'm on his screen. But he's not allowed to be skill-based about it, because if he shoots you from any further than like 20 meters away, then he does no fucking damage, because the skilled part of his kit is obviously bullshit, and the part of his kit that means that you literally cannot operate your crouch key is obviously fair and definitely the part of the kit that we should incentivize players to be using more so than the skill-based part of their kit. Yes, Blizzard, let's make it more valuable to press a button than to display your skill. That is the definition of Overwatch 2, and it's why it's the shittiest FPS game I've played in a long time. Rivals is garbage. That game is literal trash tier, and we are genuinely approaching the point where Marvel Rivals might actually be better than Overwatch somehow, even though Marvel Rivals is so bad. I have genuinely gotten to the point where I thought I might just go back to playing semi-pro CS again or pro CS again than do this. I might just give up on everything and just go play an actual game. I've genuinely considered swapping to Valorant, and that is genuinely the worst FPS game I've ever played in my entire life. But Overwatch is very quickly approaching shit tier status with its horrible design philosophy, and it feels so good after all these years to sit down and say, look at all the shit I talked about over the years about how this is better, this is better, this is better. Then the devs go, you know what, fine, we'll try it. They try it, and I'm completely validated because everything I said was better was absolutely better in every way I said it was, because I knew what I was talking about. Yet over all that time, people said, no, I'm shilling, or I'm just lying, or it's an agenda, it's a narrative, whatever it may be. But we have gone back, we have played the patch, and we have proven that the game was objectively a superior experience. We've proven the DPS passive sucks, Season 9 changes are absolutely terrible, the global healing passive is ass, the hitbox changes are terrible, the general design philosophy is garbage, the balancing is absolutely pathetic, the map design is embarrassing, the mode design is trash, and yet over all these years, people have tried to tell me with a straight face that no, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. You know, maybe it's me, but here we are in 2025, where I've been talking about how trash tier this game has been getting for almost a decade, and yet the one time they get it right, and I give them praise for it, they go ahead and get rid of the best patch they ever made for Graveyard Season for 2 years, release the shittiest game ever made, Overwatch 2. They bring back Overwatch Classic. It's as amazing as I said it would be, and yet they remove it again without word talking about how it was good. They weren't talking about the benefits of it. They didn't want to discuss any of it because they knew it was a better experience, but their egos don't let them admit it or go back and try to replicate what they actually had before. They had lightning in a bottle, and they traded all of it for ego. It is the most embarrassing gaming company I've seen in a long time. They should be so upset with themselves at the unbelievable fumble they performed. Anyway, so I just had to rant, okay? I love you all. I hope you have a good day. Praise the Lord. Go to church. Tell your neighbor they're beautiful, okay? I love you all. Have a good day, okay? Goodbye. Mwah. Mwah. Goodbye. Goodbye. Let's watch the play of the game, though. We can watch the play of the game, though. Oh, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you can talk about, like, I swagged on these guys, okay? These guys got swagged on, and that leaderboard went hard as hell. I had, like, 60. Okay, goodbye. Love you. Bye.